The massive screens in Times Square went dark all at once. Then, one by one, they flickered back to life, showing the same image. A sleek silver spacecraft approaching Earth. It wasn't human-made. In the United Nations Emergency Council chamber, Ambassador James Stone straightened his tie for the 10th time. After 6 months of preparation, today was the day humanity would officially join the Galactic Council. His hands were sweating, but his voice remained steady as he addressed the room. "The alien ship will land in 30 minutes, he said. "Everything we've worked for comes down to this moment." The landing site, a specially prepared field outside New York, was surrounded by military vehicles and news crews. When the alien ship touched down, it did so without a sound. It was beautiful, all curved lines and shining metal, making Earth's best spacecraft look like toys in comparison. The aliens called themselves the Council Representatives. They were tall, blue-skinned beings who moved with natural grace. Their leader, High Admiral Lord Nexus, stood nearly 8 feet tall and wore armor that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. "We welcome Earth to the galactic community," Lord Nexus said, his words automatically translated by a small device on his chest. "Though you are primitive by our standards, we believe all species deserve a chance to grow." The first few days of meetings went well. Earth learned about faster-than-light travel, the 100 different alien species in the Council, and the basic rules of galactic society. But everything changed when it was time to discuss military matters. Ambassador Stone proudly displayed holographic images of Earth's best warships. "The Freedom-class destroyer is our newest design," he explained. "It can reach Mars in just 5 days and carries our most advanced weapons." The council chamber went quiet. Then Lord Nexus started laughing. Other council members joined in, their different alien laughs creating an odd chorus. "My dear primitive friends," Lord Nexus said, wiping his eyes, "that vessel wouldn't survive 10 seconds against a council patrol ship. The design is, how do I say this kindly, pathetic." Stone's face turned red, but he kept his composure. "Our ships may not be as advanced as yours, but they're reliable and they're toys." Lord Nexus interrupted. "Children's playthings. Look here." He pressed a button, showing a hologram of a council warship. It was massive, covered in weapons Earth scientists couldn't even understand. "This is real military power." The meeting went downhill from there. Instead of full membership, Earth was granted protected primitive status. They would be allowed to trade with other worlds but couldn't vote on council matters. Their military was restricted to their own solar system. "It's for your own protection," Lord Nexus said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You'll thank us later." That night, in his office at the UN building, Ambassador Stone stared out at the city lights. His secure phone buzzed. A message from military command marked "Ultra Secret." Strange energy readings detected in Mariana Trench. Ancient structure found. Need your eyes on this. At the same moment, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something that had slept for millennia began to wake up. In a vast underwater chamber, lights flickered on for the first time in 50,000 years. Ancient machines hummed to life. A massive screen lit up with a single message in a language older than human civilization. "Defense Purotoxiol activated. Heskianaingi fourth theory 80s to Purotikiid species, humans, thousands of miles above." Lord Nexus stood on his flagship's bridge, looking down at Earth. "Such a backward world," he said to his second-in-command. "They'll need centuries to reach even basic council standards." He had no idea that far below those blue oceans, beneath miles of water and rock, Earth's greatest secret was stirring. The planet he thought was primitive was about to prove him very, very wrong. Dr. Lisa Marshall wasn't supposed to be this deep in the Mariana Trench. Her small research submarine's lights cut through the dark water, illuminating something that shouldn't exist. A perfectly smooth metal wall stretching into the darkness. "Control, are you seeing this?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. The wall wasn't covered in sea life, like it should be after centuries underwater. It looked brand new. "We see it, Doctor," came the reply from Deep Point Alpha, the underwater research base 2 miles above her. "Those energy readings are off the charts. Be careful." She guided the submarine closer. The metal wall had markings that seemed to shift and change as she watched. Suddenly, her submarine systems all activated at once, screens filling with strange symbols. "Control, something's happening." Her submarine moved on its own, drawn toward a section of the wall that was starting to open. "I'm not controlling it." Inside Deep Point Alpha, alarms blared. Captain Mike Harris watched in amazement as every sensor in the base lit up like Christmas lights. "Get her out of there," he ordered. But it was too late. Dr. Marshall's submarine had already passed through the opening. Instead of crushing depth, she found herself in a massive underwater chamber. The water drained away, leaving her submarine sitting on a metal floor that lit up with each step she took. "This is impossible," she whispered, stepping out in her diving suit. The chamber was huge, big enough to hold several aircraft carriers. And it was filled with ships, but not like anything built on Earth. They were sleek, almost alive-looking, covered in the same shifting patterns as the wall outside. Her suit's radio crackled. "Dr. Marshall, report. Are you all right?" "I'm." She paused, watching as sections of the floor began to rise, revealing more chambers below. "I'm looking at something that changes everything." Within hours, Deep Point Alpha was swarming with military personnel. Admiral Tom Wright arrived by fast transport, his face grim as he watched the video feeds from Marshall's discovery. "The Council can't know about this," he said, looking at the assembled scientists and military officers. "Not yet." Dr. Marshall held up a crystal she'd found. It was small, about the size of her thumb, but it glowed with an inner light. "Sir, these are some kind of data storage. There are thousands of them down there." And she connected it to a computer they'd brought down. The screen filled with images, starships, weapons, star maps, all far more advanced than even the Council's technology. "It's not just a base," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's a gift. Someone left this for us to find." Above the ocean, Council ships patrolled Earth's orbit, their crews confident in their superiority. On one of these ships, an officer reported unusual energy readings from the ocean below. "Probably they're primitive underwater vessels," his commander said dismissively. "Nothing to worry about." Back in Deep Point Alpha, Dr. Marshall made another discovery. "These ships," she said, pointing to the massive vessels in the underwater chamber, "they're not dead. They're hibernating. And look at this." She showed them a section of text their computers had just translated. "To our children, when you are ready, when you need us most, we will wake. The legacy of the precursors is your birthright. Use it wisely." Admiral Wright immediately called the president. "Ma'am, remember how the Council called our ships pathetic? Well, I think we just found our answer to that. But we need time. Time to understand what we found, time to prepare." In her private chamber on the Council flagship, Lord Nexus received a preliminary report about energy spikes from Earth's oceans. She dismissed it without reading further. After all, what could these primitives possibly have that could worry the mighty Galactic Council? Deep beneath the waves, more lights were coming on, more chambers were opening, and in the darkness of the ocean, ancient engines began to hum with power for the first time in thousands of years. The underground lab was dead quiet as Dr. Marshall inserted the last crystal into the decryption array. For 3 weeks, the best minds on Earth had worked non-stop to crack the ancient data storage devices. Now they held their breath as the computer processed the information. "It's working," Dr. Marshall whispered. The screens around them filled with text and diagrams. "My God, we're not just reading their language. We're reading their history." Admiral Wright leaned forward, his coffee forgotten in his hand. "Tell me." "They called themselves the precursors," she said, her eyes moving rapidly across the screens. "They weren't just advanced. They were the first. the first spacefaring race in our galaxy. And Earth was their home. The room erupted in surprised whispers. A young technician raised his hand. But what happened to them? Why did they leave? Before Dr. Marshall could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. On the main screen, a map of Earth appeared, showing bright dots lighting up across the globe. "Sir," a military officer rushed in. "We're getting reports from everywhere. The Sahara Desert, the Arctic, the Amazon, the Australian outback. Underground structures are activating. All of them have the same markings as our facility." Admiral Wright grabbed his secure phone. "Get me the president. Now." In the Mariana Trench facility, the massive chamber where they'd found the first ships began to transform. The walls shifted, revealing new passages. The sleeping ships' surfaces rippled like liquid metal. "They're not just ships," Dr. Marshall said, reading from the translated text. "They're alive. Sort of. Biomechanical. The precursors created them to be self-aware, able to learn and adapt." The largest ship, nearly a mile long, began to move. Its surface changed from dull gray to a deep, gleaming blue. Lines of light raced across its hull. "They left these ships to protect us," she continued. "The precursors knew other races would eventually reach Earth. They wanted to make sure we had a chance to develop on our own, without interference or conquest." In orbit, Council ships detected the massive energy signatures. Lord Nexus was awakened from sleep. "What do you mean, unknown energy signatures?" she demanded. "Find out what those primitives are doing." Back in the underwater facility, Dr. Marshall found something that made her blood run cold. "Admiral," she said, her voice shaking. "The precursors, they didn't just leave. They're still here. In a way." She pointed to a section of text. "They changed themselves, modified their own DNA, merged it with the native life on Earth. They became us. Humans are their descendants, Admiral. We're what's left of the precursors." The facility shuddered. In the main chamber, the great ship rose from its resting place. Water rushed around it, as it awakened fully for the first time in 50,000 years. Its voice, deep and resonant, filled their minds. "Children of the precursors," it said, "we have slept long, waiting for you to grow, to learn, to become ready. Now you face the same challenge we once faced, those who would deny you your rightful place among the stars." On screens throughout the facility, they watched as the massive ship rose through the ocean. Similar scenes played out across the globe as more ships emerged from their hidden bases. In orbit, Council ships scattered in panic as the first precursor vessel broke the ocean's surface. It rose into the sky, water streaming from its gleaming hull, its size dwarfing the largest Council warship. Lord Nexus stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "Impossible," she whispered. "Their ships were primitive. We saw them." Deep under the Antarctic ice, in another hidden facility, Dr. Marshall found the last message from the precursors. "Remember who you are. Remember what you can become. The stars have always been your birthright. Now claim them." The age of hiding was over. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what primitive really meant. The Council's emergency meeting chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 100 worlds shouted and argued as holographic displays showed the massive ships rising from Earth's oceans, deserts, and ice caps. Lord Nexus slammed her fist on the podium. Silence. The room quieted. Earth has violated every treaty they signed. They hid advanced technology. They deceived us. Ambassador Stone stood calmly in the center of the chamber. "We hid nothing," he said. "You never asked if we had precursor technology. You were too busy calling us primitive." Precursor. The word rippled through the chamber like a shockwave. Many representatives turned pale or changed colors in fear. "Impossible," Lord Nexus said, but her voice trembled slightly. "The precursors are a myth. Stories to frighten children." On Earth, Admiral Wright watched from the restored bridge of the first awakened ship. The vessel's interior was unlike anything humans had imagined. Organic curves blended with advanced technology, and holographic displays floated in the air around him. "How's the restoration coming?" he asked over the comm. "Better than we hoped," Dr. Marshall replied from her position in the Antarctic facility. "The ships are helping us, teaching us. It's like they're happy to have pilots again." A young officer rushed onto the bridge. "Sir, Council ships are moving, hundreds of them, heading toward Earth." In orbit, Lord Nexus personally led the Council fleet. 500 warships, the pride of Council space forces, dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Mars. "This is your final warning," she broadcast to Earth. "Surrender these stolen vessels and submit to Council authority, or face immediate destruction." The Council ships spread out in an attack formation, their weapons powered up, creating a light show that could be seen from Earth's surface. Admiral Wright smiled. The precursor ship systems had already analyzed the Council fleet. Their weapons were impressive by modern standards, but compared to precursor technology, they might as well have been firing slingshots. "This is Admiral Wright of Earth," he responded. "We cannot surrender what is rightfully ours. These ships were left to us by our ancestors. We are their children, and we have finally come home to our legacy." "You have 1 hour to surrender," Lord Nexus replied. "After that, we will open fire." In the Antarctic base, Dr. Marshall made another discovery. "Admiral," she called urgently. "The ships? They're not just warships. The precursors built them to protect and teach. Each one contains libraries of knowledge, scientific advances, medical discoveries. Knowledge the Council has been hiding from younger races," Ambassador Stone added from his position at the United Nations. "Our deep space scans show hundreds of worlds held back, just like they tried to hold us back." The hour passed quickly. Lord Nexus gave the order to fire. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward Earth. Admiral Wright didn't even have to give an order. The precursor ship reacted automatically. A field of shimmering energy expanded from its hull, stretching to cover the entire planet. The Council's weapons simply vanished on contact with the shield. "Impossible," Lord Nexus shouted. "All ships, fire everything." The Council fleet's combined firepower lit up space like a new sun. When the light faded, Earth's shield hadn't even flickered. "Now," Admiral Wright said quietly, "let us show you what primitive really looks like." The precursor ship raised its own weapon, a single, small port on its bow. A beam of light, so gentle it looked harmless, touched the Council fleet. In an instant, every ship's power went dead. What did you do?" Lord Nexus demanded, her mighty flagship now floating helpless in space. "Disabled your ships," Wright replied, "without harming a single crew member." "That's the difference between us, Lord Nexus. The precursors built these ships to protect life, not destroy it." As more precursor ships rose from Earth's surface, Lord Nexus realized that everything was about to change. The age of Council dominance was over, and a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. The Council fleet hung powerless in space, 500 of the galaxy's most advanced warships reduced to drifting metal. On her flagship's emergency-lit bridge, Lord Nexus watched more precursor ships rise from Earth's surface. "Restore our power," she demanded. "This is an act of war." Admiral Wright's voice came clear through the emergency communicators. "You came to our system with weapons ready. You threatened our planet. Who really started this war, Lord Nexus?" A new precursor ship emerged from the Indian Ocean, larger than the first. Its hull shimmered with patterns of light that made it look almost alive. As it rose into orbit, smaller ships took formation around it like an honor guard. "Your weapons are disabled, not destroyed," Wright continued. "Unlike you, we don't solve problems by destroying those we disagree with." In the Antarctic facility, Dr. Marshall worked frantically at her console. "Admiral, I found something in the ship's archives. The Council, they've done this before." She sent the data to the bridge. Wright's face darkened as he read. "Send this to every council ship," he ordered. "They all need to see this." On every vessel in the council fleet, screens came to life. They showed records of other worlds that had found precursor technology. Worlds the council had destroyed, their populations enslaved or scattered, their discoveries buried. 57 civilizations. Ambassador Stone's voice rang out. 57 times you found a younger race discovering their heritage, and 57 times you destroyed them. Lord Nexus gripped her command chair. "We maintain order. Without our control, the galaxy would fall into chaos." "You mean without your monopoly on advanced technology," Wright replied. "That ends today." A new voice filled every ship, every radio, every communication device. It was the precursor ship itself, its artificial intelligence fully awake. "Children of 1,000 worlds," it said, its voice somehow both mechanical and alive. "The time of hiding is over. For too long, the Council has prevented you from reaching your true potential." From the ship's database, images and information streamed to every world under Council control. Hidden histories, suppressed technologies, records of Council interference. Everything was revealed. Lord Nexus screamed in rage. "Emergency power to weapons. Fire everything." A few Council ships managed to power up their emergency systems. They fired at the nearest precursor vessel. The shots bounced off its hull like raindrops. "This is your final warning," Admiral Wright announced. "Earth is now under precursor protection. We will no longer bow to Council authority. But we offer you a choice." The precursor ships moved into a formation that surrounded the Council fleet. They weren't threatening. They were protecting them from what came next. From every ocean, every desert, every hidden base on Earth, more ships rose, hundreds of them. Then thousands, each one more advanced than anything the Council had ever built. By the first stars, a Council captain whispered. How many did they hide? In the Antarctic base, Dr. Marshall found the answer in the archives. "The precursors left us 10,000 ships," she said, "each one capable of protecting an entire star system." Admiral Wright delivered the ultimatum. "You have two choices, Lord Nexus. Leave Earth's space immediately and prepare for major changes in how the Council operates." Or he paused. "Well, I don't think you want to hear the or." The Council fleet's power suddenly returned. Lord Nexus stared at the sea of precursor ships surrounding her forces. Each one could have destroyed her entire fleet alone. And there were thousands. "Retreat," she ordered, her voice barely a whisper. "Full retreat." As the Council ships fled into faster-than-light travel, Admiral Wright turned to his crew. "Send word to every suppressed world in Council space. Tell them Earth stands ready to help them claim their own destiny." The age of Council dominance was over. The age of freedom had begun. The Council's main archive was a massive space station orbiting a dead star. For 10,000 years, it had held the galaxy's greatest secrets. Now, its doors opened to Earth's investigators. Dr. Marshall walked through endless rows of data crystals, her handheld scanner translating the ancient text. Behind her, two precursor drones floated silently, their sensors recording everything. "It's worse than we thought," she said into her communicator. "The Council didn't just hide technology. They'd been controlling everything. Trade routes, communications, even which species are allowed to meet each other." Admiral Wright's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Any sign of resistance?" The archive staff surrendered immediately. They seemed relieved, like they wanted this to happen. In a distant corner of the archive, she found what they were looking for: records of the Council's first contact with precursor technology. The truth was shocking. "They found a damaged precursor ship 2,000 years ago," she reported. "But instead of trying to understand it, they destroyed it. They were afraid. Afraid that if younger races got this technology, the Council would lose control." Back on Earth, Ambassador Stone addressed the United Nations. The chamber was packed with representatives from 50 different alien races, all victims of Council suppression. We've confirmed that at least 20 civilizations were completely destroyed, he said, his voice heavy. Hundreds more were forced to stay primitive, denied their right to grow and explore, all because the Council wanted to stay in power. A reptilian ambassador stood up. Our world found precursor ruins a century ago. The Council said we were too primitive to understand them. They took everything. They did the same to us, another alien added. Said we weren't ready, forced us to buy their inferior technology instead. In orbit, aboard the flagship of Earth's precursor fleet, Admiral Wright received an urgent message. More hidden archives had been found on Council worlds. The truth was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Dr. Marshall made her way to the deepest level of the archive. Here, the oldest records were kept. As she approached the central chamber, her scanner picked up a familiar energy signature. "Admiral," she called, her voice shaking with excitement. "There's a precursor data core here, still active." The chamber door opened at her touch. Inside, a crystalline structure pulsed with soft blue light. As she got closer, it activated. A hologram appeared, a message left by the precursors themselves. The beings looked surprisingly human, though their eyes held wisdom gained from millions of years of evolution. To those who find this message, the hologram said, "We left our technology scattered across the galaxy as a test. Those who would destroy it, who would deny others the right to grow, they are not worthy of our legacy. But those who would use it to help others, to protect and nurture, they are our true children." The message continued, revealing the precursors' grand plan. They hadn't just vanished. They had seeded themselves throughout the galaxy, becoming part of many species. Humans were just the first to awaken to their heritage. "Admiral," Dr. Marshall said, her voice full of wonder. "According to this, there are more hidden fleets, not just on Earth, on every world where the precursors left their mark. We just needed to be the first to wake up, to show others it was possible." Ambassador Stone received the news during the UN meeting. He smiled as he addressed the gathered aliens. "Your worlds don't just have the right to grow and advance," he announced. "You have your own legacies waiting to be found. Earth and its precursor fleet will protect you while you discover them." In the Council's emergency chamber, Lord Nexus watched her power crumble. More colonies were declaring independence every hour. The truth couldn't be hidden anymore. The age of secrets was ending. The real galactic civilization was about to begin. 1 year after Earth revealed its precursor fleet, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The Great Council Chamber, once a place of fear and suppression, now hosted a very different kind of meeting. Ambassador Stone stood at the podium, addressing representatives from over 500 worlds. The chamber had been rebuilt, its dark metal walls replaced with transparent crystal that showed the stars beyond. "The evidence is clear," he said, gesturing to the holographic displays around him. "For 2,000 years, the Council deliberately held back technological progress. They destroyed civilizations that grew too quickly. They kept you divided and dependent." Lord Nexus sat in the defendant's chair, her once proud armor now plain and unadorned. "We maintained order," she said weakly. "We prevented chaos. You prevented growth," Admiral Wright countered. He stood in his new uniform, which blended Earth military style with precursor design. "And now you'll face justice for it." Dr. Marshall approached the center of the chamber. Behind her, a precursor drone projected images of newly discovered ruins and artifacts from dozens of worlds. "Every species in this room has precursor heritage," she announced. "Not just humans. They seeded their knowledge across the galaxy, waiting for the right time. Waiting for us to help each other instead of fighting." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. On every world that had overthrown Council control, ancient technology was awakening. New fleets were rising. But this time, there was no fear. Earth's example had shown a better way. "We don't seek revenge," Ambassador Stone continued. "The precursors taught us better than that. Instead, we offer a new beginning. The Earth delegation presented their proposal. The old council would be dissolved. In its place, a new alliance would form, one where every species had an equal voice, where knowledge was shared freely. But what about order? A former council supporter demanded. Without control, there will be war. Admiral Wright smiled. Above the chamber, Earth's precursor fleet hung in formation with newly awakened ships from 20 other worlds. Each was more powerful than the entire old council fleet. The precursors left us more than weapons, he said. They left us wisdom. Any species advanced enough to wake their legacy must first prove they can use it wisely. That's why Earth's fleet disabled your ships without destroying them. That's why we're offering peace instead of punishment. In the center of the chamber, Dr. Marshall activated one final hologram. It showed the galaxy as the precursors had seen it, not as territory to be controlled, but as a garden to be nurtured. Every world has its own path, she explained, its own speed of development. The Council's mistake was forcing everyone to follow the same rules, the same timeline. Lord Nexus stood, her voice soft but clear. I was wrong, she admitted. We were all wrong. We were so afraid of chaos that we became the very thing the precursors sought to prevent. Tyrants who denied others the right to grow. The vote was unanimous. The old council was disbanded. The new alliance would protect younger civilizations while allowing them to develop naturally. Knowledge would flow freely. Trade routes would open to all. As the chamber cleared, Ambassador Stone found a quiet moment with Admiral Wright and Dr. Marshall. Did we do the right thing? Stone asked, giving everyone access to such power. A familiar voice answered, the eye of Earth's first precursor ship, now speaking for all the awakened fleets. You did exactly what you were meant to do, it said. The precursors didn't want an empire. They wanted children who would learn, grow, and help others do the same. Above the chamber, ships of 100 different worlds flew together in formation. Each was unique, blending their own culture's style with precursor technology. Earth's vessels flew point position, not as conquerors, but as guides. The long night of council rule was over. A new age had dawned. And somewhere, watching from dimensions beyond normal space, the precursors looked upon their children with pride. Humanity had passed the test, and in doing so, they had freed the galaxy.